Let me ask you more a scientific question now. So we have 23 or so peer-reviewed studies on PETANDIM. You look in the NIH database or the library, PubMed, and I think there's around 180,000 articles on oxidative stress and 9,000 on NRF2, but most of these seem to pertain to humans. How do we know that PETANDIM would work on a dog?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because obviously the National Institute of Health, the NIH, and the NIH library is in fact focused on human medicine. But we have to look at it in more depth. Out of that 180,000 papers, obviously I haven't looked at all of them, but I can tell you just from looking at the literature that the vast majority of the studies on PubMed are in animal models. They're in animal models, or they're in vitro, or studies in cell cultures or in other systems. Well, if they're in animal models, and in most cases when they're in these other model systems, they're just as applicable to dogs as they are to humans. So this vast amount of literature is just as applicable to dogs. So we have a demonstration throughout that literature that in animals, the oxidative stress, how important it is documented in these studies. And in fact, if you look at some of the publications, one of the ones I like to talk about is one that's often referred to in our presentations, and you've talked about it, and it's been in the corporate presentations, and that is the one that's by Paul and Levine out of Washington State University, where the authors talking about NRF2 as the master regulator in our bodies. And their conclusion, as many of you probably remember, if you read the full conclusion, or the last sentence of the conclusion, it says, "It is difficult to escape the suggestion from tables 1 and 4 that we may be on the verge of a new literature on health effects of NRF2, which may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventive breakthrough in the history of medicine." Well, if you go back and look at table 1, here's what the author's comment on table 1 is. Most of these studies have been done in animal models. So, in fact, the conclusion that Dr. Paul and Levine should have written is that may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventive breakthrough in the history of medicine and veterinary medicine.